high concentration of greenhouse gases is already affecting people in many parts of the world, like in South America. Less but more unpredictable rainfall and new pests affect farming, and with increased global warming, tropical glaciers are rapidly retreating, which will result in a lack of water for millions of people in major metropolitan areas. And these are just a few signs of climate change. Hi, I'm Claes Andreasen. Let me take you on a tour of South America to look at signs of global climate change.
Well, I think the most alarming signs are what is happening with the glaciers and the supply of water, and the potential impact on the supply of water. I think also the increase in temperature definitely will make an impact. Water will impact all human activity. Increased temperature will also change the patterns of vegetation, of where we can harvest things, where we can plant things.
Although most countries in South America can already see the signs of climate change, they don't emit very much greenhouse gases themselves. Bolivia and Peru are, for instance, responsible for less than 0.5% of the world's emissions each. But a majority of those emissions comes from deforestation. In Bolivia, a stunning 300,000 hectares of rainforest is cut down every year for logging, mining, to make room for soybeans or grazing cattle. According to the United Nations, about 1/5 of all greenhouse gases in the atmosphere is a direct result of deforestation. The rainforest is a perfect carbon sink, absorbing a lot of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. But as the temperature rises, the Amazon will also get drier. And this can lead to more violent wildfires, which in turn will release even more warming agents into the atmosphere. This is El Alto, Bolivia, one of the fastest growing cities in the Andes. Originally settled by internally displaced Aymara migrants from the Altiplano, the high altitude flatlands that surrounds El Alto and its sister city La Paz. With rising temperatures, many of the tropical glaciers in nearby mountains are rapidly disappearing. Less melt-off will soon become a major problem, since 80% of the drinking water in El Alto comes from the mountains and the glaciers.
O sea, nosotros no podemos evitar que en los próximos 10, 15 años perdamos gran parte de los glaciales, por más que implementemos medidas para el control de la emisión de carbono, de gases contaminantes, restricción en el uso de vehículos o normas más rígidas para la industria. O sea, para controlar todos los gases que emitimos, es tan poco lo que Bolivia emite que aunque los controlemos todo y sea el mejor programa del mundo, no pasa a ser un 0,02% de impacto con relación a los glaciales.
Now we are about
Together with Carlos Olmos from the Hydrological Institute in La Paz, we're on our way to Cordillera Real, where the peaks sit at above 13,000 feet. We stopped to look at the runoff from the mountain ranges, part of the water supply for El Alto. But many glaciers in the area, like Chacaltaya, once the world's highest ski resort, is almost entirely gone.
The biggest glaciers are retreating now. This glacier, for example, You can see that is retreating and almost disappearing in that part.
You mean it used to go all the way down here to almost that road?
You see that circus?
See?
That circus that I have? That is the signal that we had a glacier there.
And in your mind, there's no doubt that this is due to climate change. There's no natural cycle we're looking at.
No, a natural cycle takes the thousand years. If you see, it's only a period of 20 years, and it's sure that it's climate change that we have.
Some 350 miles southeast of the Bolivian capital is the small farming town of El Torno. In early March 2008, more than 100 families here lost their homes after torrential rains flooded the river, swept away houses, and caused disastrous mudslides.
A las 5 de la mañana de la madrugada yo levanté. Cuando levanté había un ruido extraño, donde nunca habíamos escuchado ese ruido. Pero resulta que había un ruido aquí, sonaba como un huracán. Pero cuando empezó a salir al patio, empezaron los árboles así, moverse y empezaron a caerse y después rodar así. Y no sabíamos qué hacer, escapar, sacar nuestras cosas. En ese momento, por lo menos una media hora, me perdí de memoria. En el Torno yo vivo hace 25 años que no ha habido ningún deslime.
According to Bolivian civil defense authorities, that year alone, intense rains, floods and mudslides left 70 people dead and more than 100,000 homeless. Global climate change and more intense and unpredictable rainy seasons mean that farming practices and crop yields are in flux. 5 hours east of Lima, the capital of Peru, is the village of Quilcas.
The first thing that everybody has noticed is that because of the rising temperatures, they've been able to grow their crops at a higher altitude. Now, potatoes have moved up, I think, all over Peru. And amazingly, it's growing now at 4,200, which is unheard of. There's local conflicts of water already, where the coast and the highlands are sharing water. And inside the highlands, there's an obvious need to understand better how to store and reuse water. And what will happen when the glaciers are gone is something that people haven't even begun to cope with, but the glaciers are going at a rapid rate. So what everybody says when we ask them, do you notice climate change? They all claim, well, we've never been this hot. We used to wear, our jackets and our sweaters, and now we're walking around in T-shirts, and they do notice the extreme burning heat that they're subjected under.
Bolivia and Peru are far from the only countries affected by climate change. Signs are also obvious in Chile.
All our water comes from the Andes. We are very long but narrow country. So our rivers, they have very pronounced slopes. So when we have precipitation, mostly in the winter, water stays in the mountains as snow and ice. If that doesn't happen, we'll have all our water rushing down in the winter when we don't need it, and we won't have water in the summer. I think that's the most alarming impact that we foresee for climate change in Chile.
En la zona central de Santiago no hay menos de 10-12 glaciares. Cada uno de los que hemos trabajado en este ambiente darnos cuenta perfectamente que la cantidad de nieve en estos últimos años ha ido disminuyendo.
Right now, there's no lack of water in the Mapuche River that runs through the city of Santiago. But as the glaciers up in the Andes, not far from town, continue to melt at an increased rate, this river may soon be drying up. And what will people do then for fresh water in Santiago? The lack of fresh water, along with rising sea levels, may be the most significant threat we face. Add to that a decline in food production and a spread of new and more devastating diseases, and you have some of the signs of a changing climate. Thank you for joining me. I'm Claes Andreasen for ACCESO Vision.